who was emotionally absent. He was a shell of himself. He didn't express emotion like pride and joy and love and sadness.
Having emotions and being okay with I'm stressed or I've just got a bit angry or I feel upset is good.
Peter Taylor, how you doing?
Benjamin Owen.
How you doing? What's going
Good.
well? What's going well? What is going well for you, Pete?
Do you know what? Yesterday, one of my coaching clients, one of the private clients, postponed our call. So he was like, oh, can we do it on Wednesday rather than today? So I had an hour's gap and it was quite like a nice day in the garden. And I went out and I picked a couple of apples. So I picked a couple of apples from the tree. I picked some mint from the garden and then I went and grabbed a coffee and I just spent 20 minutes out in the garden and it was bloody lovely. And I thought, yeah. It's just sometimes it's like you don't take those little micro moments to go, do you know what? Things are pretty good to be able to just do that. Something so simple as it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, go out, pick a couple of apples in the garden, take 15 minutes, have a coffee. It was nice. So, and it's something that I'm actively trying to do a little bit more of is practice gratitude. It's like step back and go, do you know what? Things are good and I'm grateful for this that's going on right now.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's part of you slowing down as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Like serendipity with my client postponing a call and then me being, slow down a little bit.
Yeah, I think we might have even mentioned it in previous podcasts. There's 3 speeds. There's like go, slow, and there's stop. And I think as entrepreneurs, men, we're very good at going. We maybe go slow sometimes, but we don't stop. And I think that's something that I have had to be very, very conscious of because I've seen the detriment to what happens when men specifically just spend all their time in trying to be in 5th gear. Massive shift for me.
Yeah, because actually, like for me personally, probably a couple of years ago, right, say I would have had a meeting postponed, I wouldn't have gone out in the garden and relaxed and had a coffee and just chilled out for a bit. I would have just done something else. I would have gone straight back into work mode and okay, boom, let's do something else. So yeah, I think that shows a little bit of my own personal growth there, being able to slow down a bit.
Yeah, and it actually segues really nicely into what we're talking about today. And I think I was actually quite nervous about doing this podcast.
Yeah.
Right. There's 2 reasons why. One of them is this is something I'm working on myself. I'm teaching from a place of being in the trenches, doing this work is a big thing. I think to share from a place of I'm not exonerated from this struggle because I teach it. I'm in the trenches, and I imagine you are too, Pete. The second one is like I was worried if my dad listened to this, would he feel like I'm pointing a finger? And I don't want this to be that. I want it to be like the first thing I want to share on the way into this is that I've recalled loads of episodes across my whole childhood about my dad and with my dad and who I am today. Not blaming my dad for the lack or the abundance that he gave me, but just seeing what I can improve on in my own parenting from a compassionate stance. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I feel exactly the same. When you said, let's do a podcast on the absent father, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, fair enough. And then went through some of the questions, like there was resistance. There was big resistance from me to my palms started to sweat, to even like think about answering some of the questions. And I'm like, wow, this is a place for me that is difficult.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this, if you're a man listening to this, you might get triggered. I hope you do, because as we shared on previous podcasts, triggers show you where you need to do the work. And equally, if you're a lady listening to this podcast, I really want you to understand that this is something that I believe is an epidemic for men. And you listening to this podcast and sharing it from a place of compassion with men instead of a place of judgment will really help your man. And this is something that I've noticed is that if I'm trying to help someone make change, I've got to come at it through a compassionate stance, not a judgment stance. Like say in the house when Poppy comes at me and she judges me about being absent, I just get more defensive. I get triggered and it never goes well. But when she really comes and shares and helps me with this work from a compassionate, nurturing parent, nurturing partner stance, it really helps me yeah, oh, actually, I do see that. I can see that, rather than, oh, you're absent, you're not paying attention to the kids. So it's
That's I just to jump in there. This happened yesterday in the car, right? I got triggered. Denise triggered me. So what happened is I picked up Leo from nursery, and the lady there that had been his carer for the day, she said, it looks like he's forming a little bit of a rash. So she goes, he's been absolutely fine all day. I don't think it's much to worry about, but just so you guys are aware. And then when I picked up Denise from the station, she just got back from London, yada, 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 having chats in the car. And I was like, oh, by the way, the carer said that he's formed a little bit of a rash on his body. It's quite subtle, but something for us to just be aware of. And Denise said, she's like, well, this is something that we both have to be aware of, including you. And like, he might need to go to the doctor. And it's something that not only I need to look at, as in her, but you need to look at it as well, Pete. You need to like make sure that he's okay. And I got triggered because I felt as though that she was saying it in a way that I didn't look after him, and I wasn't aware of what's going on with his body. And I didn't lose my rag, but I absolutely was like, hang on a minute.
Yeah, it hurt. I probably imagine. Yeah, I imagine it hurt.
Yeah, it did, because like, why did she say that?
And actually, the more important is that when your partner says something like that, the immediate norm for men is to show anger, because underneath, like, I talked about this on the weekend with you, is I got angry, but what's underneath the anger is always like 20 different emotions. There's actually a graphic that I send to men a lot, that from Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart, and it's like, beneath anger is these 20 different emotions, and it's really, really powerful. So often when we get triggered as men, especially around absent father and stuff, and we're going to go a mile deep into it today, is that what's going on underneath is you're probably hurting. You're probably either embarrassed, or you feel humiliated, or you feel like you're not doing a good enough job. So it's like shame. Like, that probably was shame then, like calling what it is. Like, actually, I feel a bit in shame, like I'm not a good enough dad, and that's the narrative underneath the anger. But what happens is we react with anger. We go like,
yeah,
and I had it on Saturday. Good. So just to share, okay, just let's ground ourselves and get first of all clear on what an absent father is, and just a small commitment from me and Pete. Like, I think we're committed to ending this epidemic of absent fathers. The work that we do on a daily basis helps men in their businesses, in their homes, and watching the guys this year. It's not just this program we run where guys are making more money, getting great businesses. They are reporting spending more time with their kids. Like, one of the guys on our program, when he started, he just wanted to be able to see his kids at bath time, because he opened a gym and he thought it'd be a great idea. He ended up doing all the sessions. He hadn't seen his kids go to bath and go in the bath and on the weekdays for years. And I was like, do you want that to be your goal? And he did that. And that's like, he was present now. And then, so that's the first like part of absenteeism, is like not being physically present in the home. And, old style men's, parenting is that the woman would stay at home and the man would go off to work. And those norms are being changed now with the development of technology and working online and all these different ways to work now. You can be a present father in the home. So that's the first one. So literally present physically. The second one is emotionally. We're going to go like a mile deep into each of these and walk through them and have a conversation. Is emotionally absent. So you could have had a father who was emotionally absent. He was a shell of himself. He didn't express emotion like pride and joy and love and sadness. Like, you never saw your dad cry because it just wasn't manly to cry and show emotion, right? And like, actually, like, looking back, lucky for me, I've seen my dad cry and I saw him express emotion. I've actually realized he's very emotionally expressive, but the image I had up until I did this work was not that. And the final one is attentionally absent. So I've made that one up. It's not even a real word, attentionally, but his attention is so distracted. It's so split into 1,000 different pieces that he can be in the home, but he's not there. He's not there. So, I've had these, and when I put it on the Facebook post that a lot of people engaged with and shared afterward, they were saying, daddy, daddy, look, daddy, daddy. That's from my own experience. That's not pointing the finger. That's like, I've noticed when Effie can stand in front of me saying, look, daddy, look, daddy. And I noticed she said it 3 times. And there's a bout of shame that I get hit with as soon as I've realized that. And I saw that in my dad, in my own relationship with my parents. So yeah, they're the three kind of absentee symptoms, if you wish.
Do you know, we have this a lot on the program, right? That when a guy articulates something, you're like, oh, fucking hell. Yeah, that's it. And like for you personally, you just, the feelings and the thoughts might have been there. You just couldn't get it right. You couldn't articulate it. You couldn't say it out loud. For me personally, what Ben has just said about having a father that is not very emotionally there, right? However, having gone through the work that we're going through and being able to understand that he actually does have a lot of emotions and has shown that. But when I was a child, I couldn't see that. For me, it's just dad was the man of the house, showed no emotion, right?
Yeah.
I saw him cry once, and that was when my parents divorced, right? But actually, since then, and since that I've been doing this sort of work, I can see that he actually does hold a lot of emotions, and they do come out, right, in a nice way. Not I'm not talking about anger or aggression.
But at the same time, it's all welcome, you know. And I think, you know, like what you're saying there is like, oh yeah, my dad was happy and joyful. It's like, great, but did he show anger and rage and in a safe way? Like, you see him lose his temper and stamp on the floor and do it in a way that he could demonstrate anger that wasn't aggressive, like pointing at somebody? That's equally safe. Like, I think that's something that I talked about a lot with my therapeutic work, is that anger for me from my parents' relationship meant that there was going to be some unsettlement in the home, and so it became a dangerous emotion for me to demonstrate. So I bottled it all up. So yeah, it's about looking at a man who expresses all of the emotions, and there's no such thing as a bad emotion. We talked about this maybe on previous podcasts, but at the same time, we label anger or sadness or grief as emotions that men shouldn't demonstrate in the home. But think about this in the workplace: is that there's like anger especially is something that's not welcome in a lot of workplaces. It's really pushed down. It's seen as bullying, aggressive. It gets labeled in the wrong way. And so what we end up with is a lot of angry men who are not able to express their emotions. And this further perpetuates the absenteeism of the absent father sort of epidemic, if you wish. So I want to go first. It's like, I want to share, I said, Pete, before the podcast, make sure we do both write this out, because we wanted to talk about first, like my relationship with my father. So, Dad, if you listen, I love you. And more and more, actually, my relationship. Yeah, sorry, but more and more, and my relationship is getting better and better. And this is, I asked Pete to write it. I'm going to write it. Like, we wrote it. Like, what was my relationship with my father? Inherently, he was my hero. Like, this is something we're passionate about on the Awakened Man, is like helping guys be a hero to their kids. And like, my relationship with my own dad is like, he was this hero that was just out of reach all the time for me. He was just always at work, or my mum would like be so pissed off that he was at work that she would, oh, your dad's at work all the time. And when he then came home from work, he wanted to go and do his hobbies and activities to wind down. And, oh, your dad's out windsurfing, your dad's gone to play golf. And it was really, my mum used to nag on my dad for this a lot. So I had this kind of image of my dad that was created by my mum, and there's loads of facets to this. And I think we share the same problem there, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially from later years for me personally, when my parents divorced, I was 13. I spent the majority of time living with my mum.
Yeah, and I think what you got to recognise is, like, when parents divorce, there's a lot of hurt, and if you're with the mum or with your dad, they naturally, especially if they're coming from a victim stance, they neg on the negative remarks to the other partner. And I used to get, your dad's selfish, he's money obsessed, and all these things. So what we did is, it wasn't my mum actively trying to promote my dad, but she was just hurting. So, and I think this happens in way more relationships than just my own. This is why I'm speaking about it openly. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, it'll give you just a bit of perspective. But my relationship with my father, okay, so dad was present in the house until I was 4. Mum and dad divorced. I have really fond memories of my dad. He was the fun one. We did loads of activities. He was the guy that, we did the really crazy stuff, like he built water slides in the garden. He used to like sit me on his scooter. All these really, really, really fond memories. And I also have memories of a very unsettled departure. So when my mum and dad split up, I remember this very turmoil, like really, because it was just a very passionate relationship between the two of them. So it was very unsettled, full of anger, full of rage. And it just wasn't, I have a very, very clear memory of that. And what I can remember is like things like waiting for my dad to finish work. I can remember being told that he's not in the house. I can remember going to his house when he was working hard. Now, as an adult man, I can look back and say, oh, do you know what? He was just working to demonstrate his love. That's when you learn about the love languages by Gary Chapman. Is like acts of service. So a lot of men demonstrate their love for their children, their partners, by going out and working and seeing that as an act of service. But then having the therapy with Tim, my model for love was the same. And just before Effie was born, or just as Effie was born, he helped me relook at how my model for love was for my children. He said, Ben, as much as you see love as creating, going out and working hard to help Effie and bring money in for the family, Effie only knows the love for when you're in front of her eyes, the stuff she can see. And I was like, it hit me really hard, and it actually shaped the way I parent and be as a father from that moment on. So yeah, that was my relationship with my dad, and a little bit about what it's meant for me. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I have to admit, when I started looking at this, like I said at the start, I had a lot of resistance to even write anything. And I wrote a couple of bits, and I was just like, oh, fuck it, I'm just gonna see what comes out.
Yeah, best way.
Yeah, because then it's just natural, really. But I think what was interesting for me, this is the next thing, right, is that I've like some of this information I've got from my mother, right? Like we said earlier, sometimes seeing our dad through our mother's eyes because we spent more time with them. But my memory of dad was that he wasn't around much, that he was always at work, that he was the provider, so act of service. So he was the guy that was providing for the family. But actually, dad was around physically, but not necessarily emotionally, right? So dad was in the house a lot, but like emotional connection with myself, not as much. So then my memory of him was that he wasn't around.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So that, like, I really don't recall much like comfort from my dad, or much like big hug and love, really, to be quite honest. And I recall a time that I was convinced that my dad loved my brother more than he did me, and I was really upset by it.
Yeah, it's normal. That's normal, right?
I must have been like 12, something like that, 11, 12.
Yeah, I think that's normal with two boys. Like that's normal with siblings. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And back then you just like, well, that I'm pissed off, And I wasn't. I was upset. I was really upset. But now I've started to do more work around this. I'm like, do you know what? That's quite normal. Like dad was the alpha, right? So very like an alpha male. But the more I learn about my granddad, so dad's dad, right, who passed away at a really young age, the more I learned about him from my grandma, who used to be married to him, like he was not a particularly nice man, right? So very entrepreneurial. That's what they're all about. Pete, you got the entrepreneurial side from your granddad, but actually very abusive, very, very alpha, very much women are below him, that sort of thing. So my dad had grown up with that and had to deal with that coming into then having a relationship with us. Wow. So I look at that and think, fucking hell, that's difficult. like how are you supposed to model that, right?
Yeah.
That's difficult.
That's very profound, and you can see that just as you were sharing. Then it's like Yassine said something about this like a year ago, and I can still remember it. Like a wind in the 1800s is a tornado in the 2000s, and what he meant is that it's like the generational trauma thing. Is that there's these contractions in every generation of man that just pass down. So like one generation is like superly overly aggressive, which makes the next generation super submissive, which makes the and these things get passed down, like our habits. They're not even genes, they're habits that get passed down. And I can see it in my, I couldn't imagine my dad hugging his dad. And I've always wanted to get a much more physical relationship. My dad, where we hug each other, and this is what the absent father epidemic is. It's generational trauma passed down and down and down. And there's actually just loads of memes out this on the internet. It's like you can be the end of that generational trauma for your lineage, especially for Pete. He's got a son. I can be that with my two daughters. And it's saying like, do you know what? I'm not going to make my past my future. And just because I've had absent father modeling from my dad and from his dad, I'm refusing to let this be passed down in the way that I'm behaving. And this is why it's so triggering going through this work, is that you're sitting there and I'm writing the bit for, we have a bit of info that we walk through as we're going through the podcast. I'm like, holy shit, this is a shitload of work for me. It's just like, so I think what's really important is to get into how you can like solve this stuff, because this is our experience. So you can trust that me and Pete are doing the work. We've got experience with this and we can actually spot it. And I don't think that perfection is the goal here. It's improvement. It's like looking at like when we start to go through these parts, recognize where you are as a man. Like where are you actually showing up as a problem? Like, are you physically absent? Are you emotionally absent? Are you actually, your attention's absent? And then what are you going to go and do about it as a result of listening today? Because I think this is a really, really, really helpful perspective to take to your, and if you're not a father, look at it in terms of your relationship. Like you can just look at like my spouse, it could be in your family if you haven't got a partner as well. What kind of man are you being? So physically absent father. So if you're not physically there, that is going to cause some issues for your children. I mean, if you think about this, like just not being present in the home, like if you're a man that works, for example, I know a lot of my friends out here work on the turbines, they work out to sea. There's no way that they can be home all the time. So you're going to be physically absent. Now, what you've got to be really clear about is like, if you've got a job that requires you to be very, very physically absent, you have to put strategies in to be very, very present when you're back on land or at home. And we talked about this when we talk about deep work, because when I had my team in Fast Way to Fitness, I would make sure on a Monday I was very, very present. I was very available. People could come and see me. I was physically like in the building. And so then what it meant, when I was doing deep work for the rest of the week, where I'd ask people not to come into my office, not to interrupt me, they could get all the connection they needed on a Monday. So it's the same strategy would help for a physically absent father. So if you are a physically absent father, you've got to make damn sure that you're with your children emotionally, physically, presently, your attention's there when you're in the room. So I think it's like what you're seeing as shared before is like having deep work time, but then deep love time as well.
Yeah, it's like what you mentioned earlier about a lot of guys, a lot of fathers using act of service as their form of love. But like our children, and like for me, Leo, he's not 2 yet, he's a baby, he doesn't know anything about me going to work and act of service. All that matters to him is that I'm there and he can see me and he can run and hug me and he can play with me. That's it.
Yeah,
actually, the act of service is playtime.
This is to interject. There's like I was speaking to a guy last night. We were reaching out to guys to talk to him in the group, and he said that he's got a walkie-talkie in his office, and his kid can pick it up.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So when he goes out to his garden office, walkie-talkie. So if his kid wants him, he just gets on the walkie-talkie.
Great. Yeah.
Sorry, Pete, I cut you off there. Did you want to share any more?
No. I didn't. It's something that I'm really conscious of and I'm really, really aware of. I'm not perfect at this, not at all. Even this morning, I play podcasts in the car, right? It's my drive a little bit in the morning and I put a podcast on and I was listening to my business podcast and all these strategies and I'm like, yeah, it's good. And then I looked in the back and then there's just Leo just there. And I thought, I could just put some music on and we could dance together, sort of thing, rather than him listening to the next like Profit Accelerator.
lay down some serious.
I mean, listen, when he gets into business, he's going to be a master because it's getting drilled in. However, it's 10 minutes on the way to nursery, and actually, me and him could have a great time in the car, not him having to listen to the next like revenue generation. And these are the three things you need to do. Yeah.
To be fair, I've got the best salesperson in the back. Effie will just go, wheels on the bus. And she'll keep saying wheels bus, wheels bus, wheels bus, wheels bus until I put it on if I'm doing the same thing. So physically absent fathers, it's being aware that you are not in the home. It's being aware that you're not there. And then what are you doing to counteract that? Your calendar is your best friend when it comes to the way that you operate with this, putting people in the calendar who need to be in the calendar. I just find it so much better with the people who I organize and put in my calendar get my time and attention. Emotionally absent father, this is where a lot of men need to do the work, right? Is that they just see emotions and like I get jibes from people when they see me. I've left fast and I'm which was like a fitness business and it was edgy and cool. And then now I'm talking about emotions and men expressing themselves, and they jibe at me. They call, oh, how is the awakened man? And they that's what they say to me when they see me. But largely, these are the men who I know really well who are emotionally absent. And they're also guys that drink 2-3 bottles of wine on a Friday. They're also guys that just don't want to express their emotions in front of women, and it's not pointing the finger. I come from a place of empathy with this, because guys are not modeled how to express emotions. Not just anger and rage and hurt and sadness, but they don't know sometimes even how to have a good time without a shit ton of alcohol or drugs. So that expression.
I'm going to chime in there, because this is a trap that I felt myself falling into a little while ago. This is something that I see with a lot of guys that I talk to. One of the guys who's just come into the program, this was a big thing for him. And it was like being proud of not having the emotions. He said, well, I don't get stressed, don't really get angry, like I don't really have fun either. I just get on with things and just go, 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 go. And it's that, and I was falling into that trap quite some time ago. I was like, well, I can just fuck my emotions, put them all to one side, or suppress them, push them down, right? And then just keep going. The problem with that is that over time, we do become emotionless, and then we become numb, and then we resort to things like porn and social media and drink and drugs and whatever that looks like to get things out of our system, right? And then we can't have fun, and we can't love properly, we can't feel properly. That goes into our relationships, it goes into our with our partners, and then with our children and with our friends. And having emotions and being okay with I'm stressed, or I've just got a bit angry, or I feel upset is good, right? Not fuck that. I'm just going to ignore that and then just plow on because I'm a machine. No. That's because over time, telling you, like, you'll find it really, really hard to connect with anyone.
Well, that's what the problem with an emotionally absent father, right? Is that you don't have those neural connections with your kids or with the people around you, because they haven't had the emotions with you. So they've been experiencing emotion. So what happens actually, memory is really created and heightened by emotion. You think about all of your life, some of the moments that you can recall quite easily is when you've been in peak state emotions, massive happiness or massive sadness, because emotions wire connections to the brain. So say, for example, Pete and I, when we did the Awaken Man retreat, we had this like massive connection with the guys in the room, and we were dancing after that, listening to that song. And it was like, that was a peak state. Lots of emotion. There was a lot of sadness in there. There was a lot of happiness. There was a lot of joy. That is etched into my brain. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Like literally.
Likewise. That song I played at my wedding. Like, yeah. And in our wedding video, I was like, get that song. Because it's such a fantastic memory for me because of all those emotions.
Yeah.
Load of men dancing.
Yeah, it was. But that's the
so
thing.
Said that to me a couple of years ago. A load of men dancing. Fuck off! I'm not doing that.
Yeah, but it was the way it was done. It was done very tastefully and well timed and well facilitated. But the thing, that's the point I'm trying to make is for you to experience peak emotions, sadness, joy, happiness, whatever they are, anger, they wire those memories. So then you remember things. So if your kids aren't experiencing those emotions with you, that's why Pete said before, I can't remember my dad being there because he didn't have those peak state emotions, or not many of them, right? And so that's what the problem is. So if you're a dad and you have this desire to want your kids to remember you when you pass, get emotional with them, express emotions around them, really create laughter, like joy, sadness, the passing of people, the sorrow and grief. They're important too. And because a lot of men will reference, I only saw my dad cry during friend passing away or relative passing away or dad passing away. So it's important for them to really experience. Like, I remember fits of laughter with my mum watching Kevin and Perry. We were like in tears, and I literally can remember the room. I can remember the way the fire smelled. I can remember the room. I can remember the temperature, everything, because of being that very, very emotionally present. So that's why it's so important to create laughter.
That's a fantastic point. Like, even like I said earlier with my father, I remember the first time that he cried in front of me was when they divorced, when they split up.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember the second time, which was when my best friend died, and he called me, and I remember that. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just.
I bet you
I
can
remember, I
literally remember
remember
what he said.
exactly where I was. I remember where I was in with my phone. Yeah, because that's a gem,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
That
I'm a
that
genius for that.
there. If you are a father, get emotional. I'm not talking about having a big cry up. I'm not suggesting that, but maybe. But be
Yeah,
vulnerable and be open and have fun and be a child and play and be stupid and do all those silly things that we want to do deep down, but we think it's stupid, because that's what your kids will remember.
it is very much so. And like I'm gonna leave some space for guys to have a think and like actually have a think about that. Have you got peak state emotions occurring with your kids and the people around you? That's why experiences are really really important. Okay, the final one, attention absenteeism. So it's so we did a stint in resilience and wellbeing in my old business, we looked at like presenteeism. Presenteeism in the workplace is someone that's actually there in the workplace but they're not there. They're not operating. They're actually more of a cost than an absent person because the work's not getting done. So it's the same for presenteeism in the home. It's probably attention absenteeism is probably better summed up as presenteeism. This is the father who he's there, he is seen, but he's not responding. His attention. So like this is something that's really important. You want to control someone, get their attention and scatter it into literally hundreds of different pieces. They're powerless. It removes all their potency. So what's happened with the father who's had 10 years of his kids vying for his attention is that what he says when they're 13 and 14 and 15 is the girls or the lads aren't interested in me anymore. But it's his fucking fault. I'm sorry. This is, and I've heard a lot of guys say it, and I've actually said no, it's not. I'm really going to take a stand for the great men that I've witnessed who have given their kids so much attention that they don't have that problem. And it's like, because I know one of my kind of my best friends, he's a phenomenal father. He's put, a lot of the things he's done in his own life has been like put his work late at night so he can be there with his kids. They are so interested in him and they always have been. They're great kids. He's been there every concert, every school sports day, everything. He's there present in the home. He plays with them. They don't have that problem. Yeah, I know other guys who have been attentionally absent, presenteeism if you wish, and they say, oh yeah, the kids get to X age and they're no longer interested in me. I'm not calling out all dads here, but if there's a level of that, this is what you've got to be wise up against. It's like they've been vying for your attention for such a long time, they've then given up.
Yeah. Yeah. This is I think this is one of the biggest ones. Like we can be there, we can be physically there, but if we're not paying attention to our children, like you said earlier, when Effie was going, look, daddy, look, daddy, look, daddy.
Yeah, bad. Bad.
And we all fall into it. Like I absolutely fall into it. Find myself there looking at my phone and doing something on my phone, likely business related. And then I've got Leo next to me, like sitting on me, playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, those moments are really, really special, when he's sat on me playing, and they're beautiful moments.
Yeah.
And they might not always be around. Like when he's like 10, 11 or 15, 16, I don't expect him to be sitting on me playing. So they're beautiful moments and we have to really be present.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, and guys, just be aware which one you're struggling with most, emotionally, attentionally, or physically. How do we conquer the epidemic? Okay, so we're going to rattle through some of the things that are going to help you and start to remedy this. The first one's building strong relationships with our spouses. One of the biggest reasons men are physically absent is the divorce rate. That our men leave the home. Traditionally, men leave the home, the kids stay with the mother, and marriage is the best self-development tool out there, and so is parenting. So we often say to our guys on our program, go and get a relationship counselor. But in the UK, we're so behind the States. We see it as we're broken, we're in shame if we have to do this. There was actually a really good podcast that Stephen Bartlett did with the number one matchmaker in the world, and he talked about like the UK is way behind the States on this, that we still have got this issue around counselling and marriage counselling. And for the sake of the kids, a lot of people won't either do one of those two things, build strong relationships. They see it as the other person's job to do that. It absolutely is 100% your responsibility to do that. And, a broken marriage can make it 10 times harder for a father to be present because he can't be physically in the home, and the work that needs to be done is on you. That's where, like, I always talk about, there's 3 spots we work on. There's you, me, and we. There's you do the work on you, and then you can agree to get help your spouse, your partner, if they want to do the work. But then there's we. You work on your relationship, and the relationship is an investment in being a present father. So it's like a downstream problem. You don't do the work on the relationship, it's a likely thing that you're going to end up being an absent father physically. Create work. So this is the second one. This is a really pragmatic one. I think that we should do a whole podcast on this. Pete's good at this. I learned a lot from Pete doing this, actually. So create deep work and deep love blocks in our calendars. Now, there's so much value to having deep work time where you are physically out of the room from the kids, from everyone else, and you can get shit done, because you get way more done in 30 minutes than if you sat in with the kids and the family, it'd take you 90 minutes to do. So what you'll find is you're more potent with the time that you do work, but then you have deep love blocks where you put your phone away and you connect deeply with your loved ones. And because you've had the love blocks, you don't mind being physically not present during the deep work time, and vice versa. So they both spiral up. That makes sense, Pete?
Yeah. I'm just a massive advocate of like blocking time out, or like having shut off points, like work shutdown. So I'm going to shut down from work at 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever that look, and then from 6 p.m. I am then with the family. That's the family. That there is a love block. Really, it's a deep love block. Like, for us, we block out our time in the day for our business to do certain activities. Get really good at that. Do that with your family as well. So block out time. Even like the simple one is like the date night, right? Yeah. The date night blocked out every week. It's not right for everyone, but actually, I know we found it of great benefit. It's just like, we know that's our time, and we know we're going to go and do that, and we're going to go out and with my partner, and quite often we'll bring Leo as well, and it's nice. We go out as a family, right? Yeah. So, and the next thing here is actually something that we've done recently with Leo, is that we've actively thought about things that we can do with him, right? So we started little kickers, like he plays football on a Saturday. It's all so cool. It's so, it's really, really, it's wicked. Every Saturday we get up early. We're out.
Really funny. Can I just say something really funny? All the other guys are in like football shirts and joggers, and Pete's in his like semi-casual business wear. So you can see that. I've watched the videos. It's like, so typical Pete. It's like, you notice that?
Presentable.
Yeah.
You never know where people. The dads ask me what I do. Oh, well, this is what I do. Like, oh, interesting.
Yeah, no, it's funny.
I'm presentable.
They literally look like they could jump on the pitch at any time. These guys, they look like they're reliving their football memories. Like, oh yeah, I can get to play any second.
Yeah, so my point, right, is to actually actively go out and book these activities. And we now know every Saturday morning it's something we do, and we're looking at others. We're like, okay, what's the next thing? Well, we can go pumpkin picking. Let's book that in. Let's go to Santa's grotto. Let's book that in. Let's go and see all the Christmas lights come on. Let's book that in. Oh, there's fireworks coming up, right? Let's book it in. And it's being and it's simple, right? But it's being proactive with it and getting it booked in the calendar.
Here's a little,
and then it's in, and you don't leave it up to chance. Oh shit! It's the fireworks tomorrow. Yeah, didn't book it. Oh,
here's a little
next year.
Here's a little hack: be the man that books it, not leaving it to your wife to do it or your partner.
Yeah,
right. This is like, I'm saying that having not conquered this, by the way. I'm just very conscious that leading in that relationship will get you bonus points with your spouse, not them being the one that finds it. Like, that's something that I was saying, talk openly about this on the group, and I'll say it here, is that I got stung with this the other day. Like, Poppy said to me, I was like, suggested some intimacy. And I got turned around, I was like, you can have intimacy when you book date night. And
it's really wine and dine me, and you can get laid.
Yeah, and I was like, do you know what? And I took it in the way it was meant. It was, I hadn't been showing up in that way. I hadn't been leading. So when Pete was talking about booking things, all I was thinking is like, hang on a second, Ben. It shouldn't be Poppy that books all this. It should be Ben too. And that's something, that's a commitment I'm going to make you to you listeners. is to book these things. The last two, we're going to get through these because I want to make sure we share them all with you, because there are some really, really powerful ones, and you can, you might resonate with some of them, you might not. Get crazy attentive to removing distractions. So get crazy attentive to removing distractions. If you want to really get clear on what's sapping your power, it's your attention. Get rid of your phone when you're around your kids. Leave it in a locker or a cupboard, or turn it off. Have out of office. Have notes when you on the weekend. Don't take your phone on a walk. All these little simple strategies. Remove the distractions. It's really powerful. Brené Brown said it. The fastest way to erode trust in any relationship is to be disinterested, to show disinterest. Okay, so you want your spouse to trust you, your kids to trust you, your business partner to trust you, whoever. Be interested. Get interested in them and not interested in the distractions. Because what you're saying is, you sit down at the table with someone and you put your phone on the table, is that you're saying whoever phones me is more important than your attention right now. Really important. Final one. Okay, get open and vulnerable and learn how to express your emotions around other men. The safest place for you to express an emotion as a man is around other men. Okay, this is something that I've learned, Pete's learned, we promote, is that if you are unable to express, you've called yourself emotionally vacant, you don't express emotions, you don't feel, all that sort of bullshit that we say as men, you need to learn how to do this. The safest place to do it is in a men's group. We have a men's group. It's online. You could go to one in person. You find a men's group and learn how to express. It's so, so, so powerful. Do you want to share on this one, Pete?
It'll change your life.
Yeah, well,
like now I'm in it. Now I'm in a men's group and I get to experience it. I'll never leave.
Yeah, one man on Friday
absolutely change your life.
Yeah, one man on Friday, right? So we were doing like emotion expression on Friday. One man just really broke down, and all the guys, the feeling on a Zoom call, this is on a freaking Zoom call, you could feel it in your gut and your stomach, like literally sending him support and kindness and saying, I love you. And like, he was allowed to be emotional and vulnerable in front of men. And it so happens that this same man has made more and more money month on month. It's like, go fucking figure. He's expressing himself, showing up in his relationships. He's happier than ever. He's making more money, but he's also being expressive emotionally and vulnerably. So it's so important. And like, this will help you as a father no end. We talked about memories and creating memories. You owe it to yourself and your kids to be able to create these connections with them. So if you want to be part of what we're trying to do and ending this epidemic of absent fathers, share this podcast with some men. If you're a lady listening in, share it with your partner. Don't obviously suggest it, like, hey, listen, these guys are speaking about something that I've noticed you struggle with, or share it with the guys in work, saying, guys, more men need to listen to this podcast. Because I think what we've talked about today, Pete, is it's not being talked about enough. It's not being talked about.
No, it's definitely not. It's absolutely not. So do share this with a man, and if you like this, leave us a review, please. Yeah. Just jump on the Apple app and the Spotify app and scroll down on our page. Click the five star if you liked it. That is. Right, because it really helps, and we've had a load of legends. The guys that have left us reviews, you guys are legends. Thank you so much, because our rating just bumped up. We're now in the top 150 in Apple. So thanks, guys, and until next week, we'll see you then.
Thank you, guys.